Hello guys, this is a tutorial on entity relationship diagrams, also known as ERDs. Okay, so first of all, what is an entity relationship diagram? So it is used to show the relationship between entities, and it is used to support database design in the structured approach to system analysis and design. So one of the main concepts here is an entity. What exactly is an entity? So an entity represents something about which a business needs to store data. And this is to fulfill the functional requirements of a proposed information system. So if we think about entities, it's about things that we want to capture information about in our information system. So let's say our information system is about making patients being able to make appointments to see a doctor, like at a clinic, for example. So for this instance, we have three entities that comes to mind: a patient, we want to store information about a patient, and a doctor, right? And in between the two, the patient needs to see the doctor, so an appointment would also be an entity on its own to link the patient with the doctor for an appointment. So the next concept we need to look at is the attributes. So this is also called fields, and this is the information or data that we want to store for each entity. So we want to store specific information for a patient, we want to store specific information about an appointment, and we want to store specific information about a doctor. So for example, we would like to know the patient number, the patient name. For an appointment, we need a date and time. And for a doctor, we also need a doctor number and a name for the doctor. So this is just very short. Naturally, these entities can be much larger depending on the information that we need to capture for each of these entities. So there's also this concept of a primary key that is very important in an entity relationship diagram. So a primary key is a field that stores a unique value that can be used to identify and access a record of related fields. So within our patient entity, you can think of the patient entity as a database table, and there's going to be a number of patients in that database table. How can we uniquely identify each patient in that database table? The same for an appointment and the same for a doctor. So we need a unique key to be able to identify specific records within these entities. So for this instance, we are using a patient number, which can be a uniquely generated number for each patient that's captured on the system. The appointment date and time can be used as a primary key, and the doctor number can also be used as a primary key to uniquely identify the doctor. So usually the notation for indicating a primary key in your entity is to, you'll see here at the bottom, is to put PK, which stands for primary key, in brackets. So now we know the patient number is the primary key for the patient entity, a date and time is the primary key for an appointment, and the doctor number is a primary key for our doctor. So let's say patient number 1 is Fred Boetes. Patient number 2 can also be named Fred Boetes, but he has a different patient number, which can uniquely identify the two patients with the same name and surname, for example. Then the next thing we need to look at is the relationship between entities, how these entities are linked, how do they work together, how do the data that we capture within them relate to each other. So for now, I've just drawn connecting lines with a descriptive text above it to explain the relationship between them. So a patient books an appointment, and an appointment is scheduled with a doctor. Then we need to know about foreign keys, because now in our appointment table, for example, because many patients can make appointments, and these different patients will see different doctors. And we cannot duplicate the information like doctor name, doctor surname, patient surname in the appointment entity. That would be very redundant, and it would lead to unnecessarily storing data that is unnecessary, because we have this information already in their own entities. So that's where we would use foreign keys. So the foreign key is just the primary key of the entity that it is linked to. So if you see in the appointment entity, we still have the date and time as the primary key for an appointment. So if we look at August 8, 9 a.m., then we would see patient number and doctor number that is linked to that date and time for the appointment. Then we can use the patient number and the doctor number as foreign keys in this appointment entity, so that we know which patient has booked this appointment and with which doctor is this appointment scheduled with. And that's about it in summary for the relationships, but we also need to look at cardinality. So remember on the previous slide, we just had lines of relationships between our entities and some descriptive text above it. And we know that we are using the primary keys from the entities as foreign keys in another entity to be able to link them together. But we also need to be able to say how many patients can book for how many appointments, and how many doctors can be scheduled for how many appointments. So that is where cardinality fits in. And we are going to use crow's foot notation. So here's an overview of the cardinality, or the relationships that you need to know. So we've got a one-to-one, we've got a one-to-many, we've got a many-to-many relationship, we've got a one-to-zero or more, and we've got a one-to-one or more. So let's take a look at what this would look like in our ERD. So again, we have our patient, and one patient books one-to-many appointments. And the same can be said in reverse if you look at this this relationship in reverse. So one or many appointments is booked by one patient. And then if we go to this side, one or zero doctors is scheduled with zero-to-many appointments. And the same can be said in reverse. All right, guys, I hope this gave you a bit of an overview. Some of these are terms that you need to know, and I hope this also gave you some insight into understanding an entity relationship diagram. Remember the key terms: entity, attributes, your primary key, your foreign key, your relationships, and your cardinality. All right.